Deletions,
I so moved to
Second.
accept.
okay. Any deletions, additions, changes?
No.
Okay, all in favor of accepting the agenda as written, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, we have an agenda. The minutes, approval of September 27, 2022 meeting minutes. Do I hear a motion?
I so moved.
Second.
Okay, any changes? Okay, all in favor of approving the September 27, 2022 minutes, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, that has passed. Under ordinance and resolutions, ordinance 2022-27 and ordinance amending the comprehensive classification and compensation plan of the city and appropriating funds. Do I hear a motion?
I so moved.
Second.
Okay. Andy, is this for the works?
Yes, ma'am, I can speak for that, and I may have to tag team in Mr. Gallo for that. This has been the general committee and the public works tonight. It was a general 2 weeks ago, so it will be on BOMA tonight. This is for our C schedule employees, which are temporary and seasonal parks employees. There are other part-time workers in the city that are not on the C schedule, such as school patrol and part-time parks maintenance. But these folks on the C schedule have not had a pay increase since 2019. They haven't had a COLA increase. They do not get a merit increase, but we've not given them a pay increase at all since 2019. They were not part of the citywide pay study 5-6 years ago, whenever that was done, maybe 5 years ago. It was before I started. And we've had difficulty in recruiting. I said it in public works. We have an intern in our office that is a student at Merrill Hyde that makes more money cleaning produce at Kroger than we pay our gym supervisors. So we kind of did a total, we've been working on this since May and comparing hours and what the budget impact would be and trying to figure out what it needed to be. So we did a total revamp of the C schedule, consolidated job descriptions to allow more flexibility. And also, Jason made a good point in public works to the way we've restructured it will help people with their resumes to be able to put a program supervisor instead of just a gym supervisor on a resume could help somebody. So we're trying to make it good for everybody. And these folks would get the way the ordinance is written, they would get a COLA each year going forward. They would not get a merit. But hopefully that would avoid us having to be back in this situation where we say, 4 years from now, they hadn't had a pay increase in 4 years, and we haven't kept up.
And the total effect on the general fund is 18,000.
Yes, ma'am.
It is the general fund then.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, any other comments, discussion?
I was just curious as to why this is needed now compared to when we make our mid-year budget adjustments.
We're about to start basketball season in about 2 weeks.
Okay.
Currently, we have approximately 20 gym supervisors hired. We normally have 25.
Okay.
We've done 2 recruitments. The last recruitment HR helped us with, we had 10 applicants and none of them ended up working out.
Okay,
So
that's just what I
we
wanted
can-
to know that because I hate taking even small amounts out of the general fund. So I just,
Right.
and there's urgency there.
This has been something Jason and his crew have helped us with, Robert and his team have helped us with, kind of getting the hours and number of employees and how much it affects. So appreciate everybody's help.
Anything else, committee? Okay, we ready to vote? All in favor of approving ordinance 2022-27, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, and that's on the BOMA agenda tonight?
Yes, ma'am.
Right. Okay, next item up is ordinance 2022-28. An ordinance to accept grant funds for the purchase of bulletproof vests and to appropriate these funds for this purpose. Do I hear a motion?
So move.
Second.
Any discussion, questions, comments?
I'm just glad this and the next that we are receiving grants and that our department gets grants for us.
So this is just more or less appropriating the funds that we're receiving. Yes.
So this one,
Alderman Petrell, sorry.
thank you, Chairman. So this one is a 50-50 grant, so the city will be expending $12,599. The next one that you're gonna visit is 100% covered.
Okay, and was this in the budget already? Did we provide that?
It says no budget adjustment is required
Yeah,
here in the
that's what I
notes, so.
said, yeah,
but,
so it's already included,
Okay,
the
good.
12,000 is already in the budget, okay.
Okay,
All right, any other questions, comments, discussion? Okay, all in favor of approving 2022-28, say aye.
I,
Aye, that was approved unanimously. Next item on the agenda, also sponsored by Alderman Petrelli, ordinance 2022-29, the ordinance to accept safety office grant funds for traffic enforcement and to appropriate these funds for such purposes. Do I hear a motion?
I so move.
second,
Okay, and Alderman Petrelli, did you want to speak to that? Is this 100%?
This is a non-matching grant. The total amount is 30,342.19. And this is gonna help with their wireless radar units and all that good stuff. So we're saving money for our taxpayers there.
Mhm.
Okay, any other comments, questions, discussion? Okay, all in favor of 2022-29, say aye.
I,
Aye, that has been approved unanimously. Ordinance 2022-31. An ordinance accepting a donation appropriating funds for a bicycle pump repair station.
I so move.
second,
Discussion?
I have a horrible question, but are we, the family who's donating this, are we going to allow them to have a placard or something denoting that it's in their son's memory?
They've been engraved on,
Does it have to go through the committee since it's a
Well,
donation?
we're not naming it after them, so I would
Okay.
hope not. Be just like when we put a tree in the park
Oh,
with a
yeah,
plaque
That's wonderful.
yeah,
or a bench. Unless you all tell me otherwise.
This is, of course, very sad, but I appreciate the donation. It's wonderful.
And it's gonna be at Veterans Park, is that right?
Yes, ma'am.
Any other questions or discussion? Okay, all in favor of approving ordinance 2022-31, say aye.
I,
Okay, that was approved unanimously.
Mr. Chairman, I wanted to let y'all know the last two items. Mr. Skidmore wanted me to let y'all know those passed Public Works unanimously also.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Director
the
Gill.
last 6 and 7, is that what you're talking about?
So, the last two,
The last-
and number 7 did as well.
32. Okay, next item on the agenda is ordinance 2022-32. An ordinance appropriating funds for a new pumper truck for the city of Hendersonville. Do I hear a motion?
I so move.
Second,
Okay, discussion. Scotty, you have the floor.
So we have, we're trying to implement a apparatus replacement program. So instances like this won't happen in the future. It'll be a planned out process, based off NFPA 1901 and 1911, that we have a planned opportunity to have replacement based off those standards. In saying that, the current reserve engine we have right now is 22 years old, going to be 23 in January. And that is 3 years right now, currently past its recommendation per NFPA 1901 and 1911. Engine 6 is going to be 15 years old. So basically what we're trying to do is go ahead and replace engine 6, put it as a reserve status, take the current reserve that we have right now and either try to sell it, or, you know, if there's an agency that possibly we could donate it to, that we want to do that. We've done that in the past with County Volunteer Fire Services. But that would give us 5 years to have a somewhat decent engine in our reserve status. The one that's 22, going to be 23 years old, doesn't meet the current safety standards that have been put out in the last 22, 23 years. And so we're just asking for that to be replaced.
And it's actually 8 years past its prime.
Well, 15 years is supposed to be frontline service, and 5 years is reserve, so 20 years total. So it's really going to be 3 years past its service.
so Chief Bush, what has prompted this? Because we had a mid-year review. I mean, we had our budget cycle. Did we talk about this during the budget cycle? I don't remember it.
So 2 years ago, because of COVID, we were kind of in reduced budget times. We were actually cut 4% this past year. We were given guidelines to operate our budgets within guidelines, and it was only 1% over that we were permitted to ask for. And so that's the last 2 years it's been in my 5-year strategic plan that I've done twice now. The last one was in 2020, and it's listed in that as part of a replacement program. It doesn't matter. I mean, again, I'm just asking for it to be replaced. How you guys do that, that's totally up to you.
No, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, I'm not saying no to this, but
Sure.
I'm saying no, not right now. I think we need to wait a few months when we do our mid-year review and look at our entire public safety budget and prioritize from there. Because we don't really know what police needs at this point. This is a big figure that I feel like it's being rushed through a little bit.
Well, so let me say this too, if you don't mind, unless, I'm sorry.
Sure,
I
please.
didn't want to cut one of you guys off.
Yeah.
So the other push was there's some savings. If we got it ordered by November the 1st, we potentially can save 7%.
That's 6 days from today.
So obviously it's probably not going to happen.
That's right.
They would-
So when I read that, I was like, well, that's out the window at this point,
Okay,
right?
but
I mean, because I don't see how it could be rushed through. Because we'd need 2 votes in Boma to get this, right? We need 2 votes.
Do
So
we
the
need
savings
two
is,
votes to sign the contract, right?
I think that's more of a question for finance. I think before you enter into a contract like that, I think you have to have the money earmarked for it. Or not, just based on conversations that Robert and I have had in the past. Is
No,
that correct?
you're correct. The money has to have been appropriated prior to obligation.
So after November the 1st, it goes up by 40 or 50 grand.
Yes, ma'am, 7%. EPA is coming down with some new guidelines. And then the other part of that is we don't order it before November the 1st. It's going to be 3 years, which means that reserve will now be 26 years old
So if
before we
we,
receive,
if we
it.
added
Which
it to the
which
agenda-
fire station,
Winston
what
Hills.
area does this cover?
Winston Hills, Station 6.
Okay, so what area is that? Is that Ward
It's
5?
Yes, ma'am.
I didn't even know that.
Okay,
So Ward 5 has the 15-year-old truck right now.
Yes, ma'am.
is that how old Winston Hills is?
it's the backup, the backups.
No, the backup
No.
right now is currently 22 years old.
Okay,
Yeah.
So
Engine
by the
6 is the
time we
front line,
got
and
the
it's
new truck, it
Approaching
would
15
be,
years.
it's approaching,
It'll
but
be
the
15.
guideline says more than 15 years, not,
but
so we're
it's a-
still within the guidelines for a year
It says.
on that one.
it takes longer than a year to get.
It
the
is
truck.
recommended that apparatus more than 15 years old that have
More
either
than.
been properly maintained and are still serviceable, be placed in reserve status and in accordance with NFPA 1912. And then it says that last sentence, anything that's over 25 years old should be replaced. So again, it's the matter of ordering one and how long you have to wait before you receive it.
Right.
And the timeline to get a truck after the EPA guidelines change.
It adds a year to it.
So it'd be
If we got it done by November the
years.
1st, we get it in 20 months, 20 to 24 months. If it's after November the 1st, it'll be 30 to 36.
Which
Okay.
makes our truck, our reserve truck
26,
26 years
almost
old.
27, yes,
So, and it makes our 15-year-old truck 18 years old.
correct. So you'll have 2 years left.
So,
for it to be
and it,
reserved.
we're talking about a $40,000 swing. Or
It's-
45,
It goes from, I think
Okay.
it's in the ordinance, it goes from 700 and something thousand. That 7% increase takes it to 820. I think it's from 760 to 820. What I remember off the top of my head, I think it was 760 to
So the-
820.
763 to 819.
Yes.
Did you want to
So,
ask another question, Rachel?
the
about
only-
Cost of the
well,
selling?
I have a couple questions. The only way we could do this, I don't even know if this is possible. But if we added it to the agenda tonight, because it was in public safety 2 weeks ago. So that's an option, I think. And then we would have to have a special call meeting, but would that meet the guidelines for public notice? If we had a special call meeting between now and November 1st to
Sure.
vote on something like that?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, before the timing issue even came up, I had a question about if we were to sell the 23-year-old, would it be 25 years by the time we could sell it? Do you have any guess as to how much money that would bring in?
I'd say anywhere from 25 to 50K. Just looking at stuff today, online, of apparatus that old. They don't really hold their value. Because of the wear and tear that they go under, they suffer, in a organization such as ours.
Mhm.
So how would it be that another organization could use it, but we can't?
So volunteer agencies typically will buy stuff like that and use it because they don't have the funding. They'll buy something like that and make it
So they're
last.
not held to the NFPA?
They should certainly follow them because NFPA is basically guidelines for best practices.
Yeah.
So like if an accident was to occur and let's say, God forbid, somebody from the fire department was injured or somebody in the community was injured, if it's not meeting those NFPA standards, you're gonna be in a courtroom with folks that are gonna say, you knew these standards were in place, why did you not have it replaced?
And how does that, how does that impact your ISO to have a out of guidelines?
I don't know that it will. We're actually due for our current ISO rating this year.
Okay,
So that will be a question that I ask for them or of them. Basically, all I can find about ISO is you're required to have one reserve engine for every 8 frontline equipment, every 8 engines. So we don't have 8 frontline engines. We only have 7 once Station 7 is built. So we're good within those guidelines, but I don't know if there's an age factor, if they deduct half points or points for it being not in compliance with this. That's a question I'll have to ask.
In the past, since I've been on the board, we've gotten some pretty good hefty grants for fire trucks. I mean, I'm talking about 80% grants, 75% grants. Is there no money there to get any of that?
Oh, we applied.
I'm sure you have.
We just
but-
haven't been selected. The last grant we got was in 18, was the safer grant that we had for 19 folks.
Yes,
We've got one on the table now for the 12, and then we've got an AFG out right now, but they haven't moved on those since September 21st, awarding money. to anybody.
so we've applied for an engine.
We did not apply for an engine. No, ma'am. We can do that this next go round.
What's the next go around?
I think it comes up after the first of the year. I'll have to look at that and see. I don't want to misspeak on that. I'll have to get you a date and send it to you, but I don't know that off the top of my head.
would they do a grant for one we've already?
No
ordered?
guarantees. Grants are,
I mean, but if they did, would they do it for something we already ordered? To-
oh, no. Once you
No.
once you earmark the money, they won't reimburse you
Yeah.
for purchase. Grants don't work that way.
Yeah.
Jesse, the way our fund policy is now, we have this like. The general fund gets to a point and then we have a public safety reserve. Right?
We
With
have
the
a prudent-
different buckets,
A prudent reserve and an infrastructure.
infrastructure, so this would be infrastructure. Right,
Prudent.
or prudent,
Uh,
how much money is in either of those?
it wouldn't really be,
Okay,
about $1.5 million is in each one, I believe.
That's right.
so is that what the thought is, that if we approved this purchase, the money would come from?
Yeah, I mean, I don't even know that we have the full reserve. We probably have general. that we-
And how's that?
How much do
What
we have in the
concept do you-
general fund?
Bringing in more revenue? What?
Yeah, so this year, I think we've had about 100, 200,000 extra each month in that sales tax revenue. So, I mean, there's a lot of ways you could dice it. We're not at a point where we can't. I don't know that the board wants to. But we're not at a point where we have the money in the bank if that was a priority. And we can grab some different buckets. So the reserve designations for the prudent reserve and for the infrastructure reserve, they're designated that way by Mr. Manning. It doesn't take recognition to necessarily pull out of that reserve. So
What about the
it's not a
COVID?
dollars.
What about the COVID money?
So the COVID dollars, just kind of amass into our general fund, since the treasury came out with a final rule that says, hey, we recognize every city had an economic impact due to COVID.
Mhm.
So if you got 10 million or less, you could just put it in your general fund, and that's what we did to balance our budget this year. Our operating budget this year was still in the red, even with the COVID monies coming.
Yeah, I know.
And we budget conservatively,
Mhm.
so we should, revenues have been coming in higher, and hopefully expenses come in lower.
Well, we're almost at $500,000 additional that we budgeted for sales tax so far year to date.
yeah, I mean, I'm feeling what you're saying, Karen, about this being outside of a larger budget review. But it's gonna cost taxpayers $56,000 by
Uh-huh.
waiting until December or January.
My fear is the same things that have to happen to the Fire Hall 7 is gonna happen here. It cost the taxpayers additional several $1 million because we waited. So that's, yes, Alderman Petrella.
Thank you, Chairman. So as chairman of the public safety, this came up in discussion at the last meeting. Both Russ and I were concerned with the time frame for a new build.
Mhm.
And the rush is that savings of money. $50,000 is a lot of money. I mean, we appropriated what? Last year, an extra 300,000 for paving. I mean, that's something that, even though we're spending money, that piece of apparatus has to be replaced. I mean, it's, you know, it's working right now. It may not be working next year. And I wouldn't be doing my due diligence as chairman, putting our people on a piece of equipment like that. It really should have been replaced by now.
That's why I'm wondering why we didn't talk about this last month or the month before or the
We
month.
didn't talk about it the month before because we didn't have for public safety, and we also didn't have that member at public safety last month either, so we didn't have this discussion.
It's a shame.
But that's what the rush is to save a little bit. But we're also pushing up that build time. We're gonna save, what did he say?
It changes from 20 to 24 months to 30 to 36.
Which is a
That's a
huge
concern.
difference. I mean,
It's another
that's a year.
I do have another question. I'm thinking about the conversations we've had in this committee about the golf course pump thing and not being able to get parts. I'm wondering if you have any knowledge about the availability of
I
parts.
mean,
Should you need to
each year that
repair?
goes by, it becomes more difficult to get parts. I mean, that's common
But no
knowledge. with any vehicle.
specific like COVID or supply chain related issues
Yeah.
with getting parts, just the age.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes.
I
Okay.
mean, this is.
It's like having an old car. They don't make those oil filters
Well,
anymore.
that's what I was
So
gonna say. I mean, I'm not aware. And I realize we're talking two different type of vehicles, but I'm not aware of anybody I know that is driving a 22-year-old vehicle. I mean, I'm not aware of many people that drive a vehicle past 5 years at this point. But it's about safety and longevity. Really, you know, when you do this mid-year budget, you should be budgeting for the number 2 piece of apparatus that's coming down the line. So if we can save a little bit here by pushing it through, we're gonna save build time and money because we've got that second piece of apparatus coming right down the pipeline.
But this becomes a moot point if we can't have a second reading before November 1st.
Would you be open
that
to a
correct?
special call meeting, Mayor?
No.
And why is that?
We have an ordinance that a couple weeks ago prohibited us from making some appointments, some lame duck appointments.
Mhm.
As much as I feel like that hurt us, that made sense, that we shouldn't rush some things through, especially since we all know we're gonna have 5 new members. And I think the point of that ordinance was you shouldn't put an obligation so closely to an election that might be politically motivated. And I think spending a good chunk of money like this certainly should be prohibited or absolutely should be, I should say prohibited, but absolutely should be restricted in these kind of situations. Because we are putting an obligation on somebody, 5 people who are not here right now. And I have a hard time with that.
How could this be politically motivated for saving taxpayers over $50,000? Mayor,
I think in the
I
same way that we
understand
have,
that.
I think in the same way that we have an ordinance that prevents us from making appointments. We should also be very concerned about spending this kind of money. If you notice, my agendas have not really, I've been very careful at what I've added to the agenda, what I've put on the agendas in the past couple of weeks. Because I think we need to be concerned about the fact that decisions we make are going to be obligated towards somebody who's not here right now.
But that's the continuity and operation of a city. I mean, you've got projects, and just because you have projects, you don't discontinue those projects. You know, we've got a fire station bill, just, we might have $100,000 change order come through, and just because that we're in the middle of an election season, you don't wait on that because it could delay the project. I mean, this is about our public safety team, about our men and women in our fire department riding on equipment that is safe. And not only that, this saves taxpayers money and time. But, so you're saying you won't do a special called meeting to even consider this, is what you're saying?
I think I've answered the question. If I'm willing to call a special call meeting for this specifically, the answer is no.
Okay, well, I take issue with your point of politically motivated. I think that's a sad commentary regarding our public safety concerns, which should always be number one for the city. Our fire department has put out 2 major fires in the last month. That sadly has resulted of deaths of our citizens. And the issue is real. Having top-notch equipment. Thank you, Chairman.
I just want to say, I stand with my first statement. It's not politically motivated at all. We could be talking about this a year ago and I wouldn't rush this vote through. So I just feel like I feel rushed. And I think that we have a process to review our entire budget and public safety in terms of fire and police. And that's coming up in a few months. I don't think we're going to make the November deadline. And I just,
Yeah, I agree that it's a moot point at this.
Yeah.
At this juncture.
I just want everybody to understand that.
Thank you, Karen.
Realizing that we don't have a specific pot of money to pull this from, that it would be coming from the general fund, and it's so much money, it does make me feel like I would just feel so much more comfortable if we did it at the mid-year. But I would still, I mean, I'm going to vote in favor of a favorable recommendation to send this to BOMA. And I would still support adding it to the agenda tonight, although it won't matter because we won't have a meeting. And I don't even know how that works when you have a first reading and then a second reading. But to me, the thing that would make me still put my discomfort aside is knowing that, as Alderman Petrelli pointed out, we've had 2 fatalities, which is heartbreaking. We try not to make emotional decisions, but the price is going to go up, and that's kind of moot at this point. But I can't help but wonder if the sooner we get it ordered, the sooner we'll get it, obviously. But if maybe that 30 months turns into 32, or maybe it turns into 28. So just like get in front of the line to the extent that we can, because that gap for how long it takes us to get the truck, that's a concern for me, because I don't know how that's going to impact, being as how I'm not a fire safety professional. I can't really fully appreciate the impact on our department or the public 3 years from now for having an older truck.
It specifically
Yeah.
impacts your board.
Yeah, I didn't even realize that. Would they actually
Ward
get the
5.
new truck, or would the trucks kind of shuffle?
So Station 6 would get the new truck, and then the current Engine 6 would go into the reserve status.
So they get the truck.
This is a
And
silly question,
so-
but does the engine and the station number match, or
Yes,
is that a coincidence? Okay.
Yes.
I didn't know.
But we are replacing, ultimately, we are replacing a 15, not quite a 15-year-old truck right now. That's ultimately what we're doing.
It's a 22-year-old truck.
We're replacing a
22-year-old.
No, the one we're using,
Is
so not the
15.
reserve, the one
But
we're
it-
currently using at Station 6 is 15,
But
is
it's-
not
it'll
quite
be-
15 years
It'll
old.
be 18.
Yeah, that's right.
So the 15 is kind of not. It's not like
So
we
that'll
can go to the
become-
car
that'll
lot
become
and
the
get
reserve
one
one.
tomorrow.
Jesse, did you have any comments to make about this?
If you don't mind.
No, not at all.
I really like Mr. Gilly's hat. Everyone's side, turn the wrong way. So stay ready.
Oh, wait.
Okay.
And we know that Chief Bush does a great job running his
Sure.
department. And, you know, what we'd like to do is just have this on the budget every year. Because I think what's happening is we don't have a real systematic process for the replacement. So Chief Bush just put a bunch of data together where we can put together a replacement schedule, and then we can just budget for it every year. Because right now, you know, if a truck comes up in 2 years, all of a sudden, no, there's a big spike in the budget. And then next year, we don't buy a truck, and then maybe 2 years later, it's a ladder truck, and then, oh, it's, you know, a real big budget again. So we can just have a standard replacement schedule, and I think that's what got this conversation started. So we will be coming back with a replacement schedule, just so we can be routine. And then every year in the budget, we can just allocate, you know, like maybe half of a truck every year, once we agree on a replacement year and a replacement.
And the
age.
same for police vehicles and everything else on a schedule, like an
Right.
old school Christmas club.
Yeah, and the police, we actually deferred 10 of their vehicles to see if we could do it at mid-year, because they originally requested 20 at the beginning of the year. But we were in the red with our operating budget the way it was. We said, let's do 10 now. Let's look at the mid-year to do, see if we can do 10 then. But we want to do the same thing. So
Mhm.
police and fire on a routine schedule, and then just put it in the budget every single year. So the budget's more consistent that way. So we will be coming
That makes
back.
good
Whatever
sense.
happens with this, we will still be coming back with a replacement schedule.
That's what I was gonna mention. I mean, either way, you're gonna be replacing this apparatus.
Yeah.
In the next year.
Yeah, whether it's gonna cost 50,000 more or not is the question right now before us.
Well, in 36 months, you know, it's just like construction. It'll turn into 42 months. So
Okay, any other comments, discussion? All right, all in favor of approving ordinance 2022-32, even though it's not gonna really matter at this point?
Aye.
Aye,
Nay.
nay, okay. All right, that has a positive recommendation. Next item on the agenda is 20-22-33, an ordinance appropriating funds for a survey of the deer population in the city of Hendersonville. Do I hear a motion?
So moved. I'm sorry.
Oh, second,
All
whichever.
right, and this is for $7,500 to be appropriated for them to do a survey, I'm sorry.
I know where,
And there's no write-up on this, but we do have some deer money set aside. Do we not in our budget? Oh, I'm sorry, I should be asking you. Well, Oliver Berry thinks we do. So I guess I need to let him know that we don't have any deer money.
Years
For the
ago, they gave a yearly allotment, but that was 2018, 2019, something like that.
Yeah.
That money was usable for that year, but kind of like a departmental allotment.
Yeah.
It's kind of use it or lose it.
I hesitate, and you know, I'm the BOMA liaison. I hesitate spending this money for the study when we all know what the answers, we hope the
Well,
answer is going to be that we.
my
survey
question is what
when that
kind of
survey
study?
Came, they said
Right.
that there wasn't any.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
I,
So we don't really
That's
know
crazy.
what we're gonna get with
But if
spending
we-
this money, and if it even gives us, it doesn't give us any direction, so,
so I had asked and you said you would work on researching.
yeah.
So
Okay,
speak to
we're
that,
all-
please.
So I had a conversation with somebody from the SDA Thursday and Friday of last week. They're very willing to do the study. They're also willing to meet with property owners that have consistent problems.
It's
They're,
the
That's
whole-
awesome.
Wow.
yeah.
That's
That's
thousands
awesome.
of people.
I've got a
Yeah.
list for them.
So, but they know that the study needs to be done probably January, February, when's the best time to actually spot the deer. And like I said, they're very willing to do that. They're putting together what, what we expect, what they would provide, in the next couple weeks. And I think $7,500 is in the range.
How do they, is it the same method as the last study?
No, good question. One of the things I've asked for is tell us how many on this peninsula, how many on that peninsula, and how many in the whole city.
Great.
But
that's
do
the-
they do the helicopter thing? I just,
Well, I have to take back my comment from a couple weeks ago where I said Ward 3 doesn't have any deer. We do have deer.
They heard-
They ate all my mums.
So for those of you who may not have heard me say this before, but the street with the worst deer population is Buckhaven Court. No kidding.
Is that in Ward 4?
It's, yeah, I think it's-
Yeah, it's Ward 4 and yeah.
I don't even
it's-
know that street.
Yeah.
I'm gonna look it up.
Wow.
Well,
Um,
that's funny that the name of it's Buckhaven.
If we don't do the study, how does it impact our ability to take action?
What action are we gonna take? What action? I mean, I don't think we have a plan.
Well, we don't.
So,
But this habit, I am just gonna be so beside myself if we get another study that says we have fewer than 100 deer, because.
Yep.
I mean,
That's a possibility.
Yeah, but like
So
the
we don't-
mayor said, I think they took the whole city as a whole. Well, I was so adamant that Ward 3 didn't have any deer, but we really do, but not the
but,
amount of
but
deer.
I
is
I
Ward
mean,
4 is
why should I
terrible.
trust them to
Fine.
do a better job than they did the last time? And does this study, the results of this study impact our like legal ability to take action? I know it might impact our decision-making abilities, but
it might help us in being risk averse, so that we've done the study and we're moving toward action if we have a problem with someone wanting to litigate toward us. Do you understand what I'm saying?
I do.
Okay.
Okay, that's convincing,
Yeah.
so fine. I have no faith in this.
I don't either.
Sorry.
But
Now, we're just gonna
I'm there.
put this money aside, and whether or not we decide to use it is another story, right, Mayor?
Yes.
Okay,
okay.
I'm very reluctant to do anything involving deer without the recommendation. from the-
sure,
Yeah. me
sure.
too.
That's my understanding of this. Okay, any other
It's from
comments?
the general fund again.
Yeah, this is from the general fund.
We're just spending it all.
No,
Okay,
this is nothing compared to. what
I
we've done in
know,
years
I know,
past.
it's just,
Trust me.
okay.
Okay, all in favor of recommending ordinance 2022-33, say aye.
I,
Okay, that was recommended unanimously. And the last item on our agenda for under resolutions and ordinances is a resolution allowing the city to bid on hosting the 2023 and 2024 TSSAA. I think I put an extra A in there, State Cross Country Championships. Do I hear a motion?
I so move.
second.
Second discussion, Andy.
You want me to discuss it?
Oh,
Seems like we just talked about it, but it's been 2 years.
We've not had to bid on this before. We had to bid on the middle school baseball and softball.
Okay.
They brought this to us from Nashville during 2020. It had been in Nashville for 49 years. And then they just awarded us a contract in 2021 for 2 years. Now they're bidding out all their state championships. So this bid calls for us, whoever gets it, to do the same thing, provide the same services we've been providing the last 3 years. We do feel like we've met with Sumner County Tourism and our staff and the mayor. The tourism director believes that he's gonna have to supplement our bid with a cash payment, probably because there's other cities that have seen how good it is and they're gonna bid on it. We know Murfreesboro for sure is gonna bid on it. We feel like Clarksville and some other cities will too.
okay. Good enough for me.
So do we know that the county is committed to this $5,000?
We do.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Anybody else? Okay, all in favor of recommending resolution 2022-46, say aye.
I,
That has been recommended unanimously. Now we're gonna go on to our reports, Robert, on sales tax.
Okay, local sales tax for collected for August activity remitted in September, received for us in October. Is $1,494,000. Keep in mind that is that is the month of tax-free weekend and tax-free items for the entire month of August. But that still does is an increase of about 84,500 over last year's collection for the same month. Year to date, $457,000 over last year. And on pace to be about 15% over our budgeted figure. And year to date is about 10% over last year's first quarter of local sales tax analysis as well. Moving on to the, unless you have any questions, I'll move on to the
No, that's
hotel
all.
motel.
All
Great, good news.
We like good news,
Yeah.
right?
Hotel motel took a pretty significant jump over last month and over last year at 32,673, which is 15,600 and some change over last year's figures. We also had an adjustment to last month, kind of a late payment come in of around 1,500. So we increased last month as well. But
So year over year or 15,000
Mhm.
in the bid, right?
correct, as compared to
Sounds
last.
good to me.
Yep.
Anything, how's our general fund? I
It'll
keep on-
be-
I forget to ask you about it. Do you have any numbers on that?
I tell you what, I'll send it to the finance committee off the top of my head, the number. Kind of speaking a little bit to what Jesse was talking about earlier. What we've attempted to do with the fund balance policy and kind of one of the conversations I believe he wants to have is. What do we do with money that's in excess of the fund balance policy for 2 months, 16% of operational expenditures? If that number is 9 million, then what do we do if we have 10? We put 1 million in reserve for what purpose? So, unassigned fund balance is gonna hover around 8.5 to 9 million. But, the fund balance itself is likely with committals and everything around, 28 million, 30 million. So, we've committed a good portion of that, but I think we're gonna shoot somewhere around 12 to 13 million. Without committed, but those reserves like prudent reserve and infrastructure.
Okay. I'm gonna move over. Well, anything else, committee?
No.
Okay, do I hear a motion to adjourn?
I so move.
Second.
Okay, all in favor of adjourning the finance meeting, say aye.
Aye.
Aye, we are